All right, this is going to be a video of my slideshow on Ciphers and Codes Part 1. And just a second, I'm going to turn it over to the actual slideshow so that you can see the whole screen without having any view of me in there, and so won't cover up any of the slide information. So I'm also going to share this with you just as a Google slideshow. That way you can click through at your own pace or use it as a reference guide later this week as we do more coding and decoding. So here we go. Ciphers and Codes Part 1. Okay, here we go. This is Ciphers and Codes Part 1. And in this slideshow, we're going to cover symbol ciphers, affine ciphers, @bash, Caesar, keyword, and polyalphabetic. The first cipher we're going to talk about is the symbol cipher. And you have used the symbol cipher already in this unit because this is the kind of cipher that was sent to you in the total letter, the teachers opposed to anti-learning letter. And here are two examples. I included the one that was in your letter, but also another one that has sort of like a pirate theme to it. And the idea is that you take letters of the alphabet. In this case, they only gave you some letters, this top one, and then you're supposed to decode a secret word. So we look at the steering wheel here, and we go, oh, which symbol matches that? And that's a D. And then the skull and crossbones, we have two in a row, O. And then we have this bottle of, I don't know, either it's whiskey or maybe it's poison, and that's an R. So the answer to this code would be door. And then obviously this is the code down here that we used for the total letter. It's a really fun cipher to use. It's pretty simple if you have a younger audience or you want to make something a little less complicated. Using a cipher like a symbol cipher is a great way to do that. The next cipher is a substitution cipher. Actually, these are all substitution ciphers, but this one is called the affine cipher. And basically, instead of using symbols or letters, you're using numbers. And so you see down here in this chart, here's the alphabet A to Z, and underneath it, corresponding numbers that go to a letter. So 19, we would look to where 19 is and see that that's an S. And then we would look at 3 and see what 3 represents, and that is a C, and so on until we did 5, 14, 3, and 5 and found out it was science. Now, this code here that's on the right is the same sort of affine cipher, except that you'll notice in the code, and not all of the numbers are filled in, but the numbers are in mixed order. So it makes it another level of complication. Anytime you're coding and you add another layer of something that someone would need to figure out, it adds a layer of complexity and it makes your code a little more difficult to break. This was taken from a resource that they wanted you to go ahead and fill in, see if you could figure out what the other numbers of the alphabet were based on sort of like a Wheel of Fortune or hangman sort of style. And if you can start to figure out what the patterns of the words are, then you might be able to figure out what the code is. But again, mixing up the numbers is a more elevated, advanced version of the affine cipher. Next, we have the @bash cipher, and this comes from the Hebrew alphabet. We talked a little bit about this yesterday in the history of ciphers. And actually, there's some ciphered text in the book of Jeremiah, which is in the Bible, where they use the @bash cipher. And it's usually considered to be a pretty easy cipher. And you'll notice if I write the letters of the alphabet out forward, A through Z, the @bash cipher is really just the reverse, starting it with Z and writing the alphabet backwards all the way till you get back to letter A. It's kind of a nice, easy cipher because you have the mirror image of it. So, for example, B, if we look here at the beginning of the alphabet, B translates to Y. But when we go down to Y, Y also translates to B. So it's a nice mirrored sort of cipher. If I were going to had the code HXRVMXV, I could go to H and see that that's S, then go to X and see that that's C, go to R, see that that's I, and quickly decoded to science. So that's the @bash cipher. It's a very old cipher and a super fun one to use. The Caesar cipher, we talked about the Caesar cipher also yesterday. This cipher was supposedly used by Julius Caesar, at least came into practice about the time that he was in power. It was used for military messages, obviously to send messages to keep them out of the hands of your adversaries. And this cipher works by shifting the alphabet some number of letters. And you'll see here it says the cipher works by shifting for each letter the letter that is K further letters along the alphabet. So K is a variable, and you've talked about that in math. A lot of times we use X as a variable. If we said 3 plus X equals 5, we would know that X equals 2. Well, in this case, the X or the K or whatever the letter is the number of letters that the alphabet is going to be shifted. And so if you look down here, we have the capital letters A through, well, let's look at the top. So we have the letters A through Z at the top. And if we shift those letters 3 spaces, 1, 2, 3, now A becomes D, B becomes E, C becomes F. So this is a Caesar shift of 3. So if we look at V, if we have the clue, sorry, that keeps coming up. If we have the clue VFL, right? We would go to the shifted V, which would be S, shifted 3 to the right. And then F corresponds to C. L corresponds to I. Q, N. And we would simply be writing this down. And as you see, we're starting to spell out the word science. So the Caesar shift is an example of just shifting. You have 2 lines of the alphabet and shifting one of the lines to the right. And you can shift it 1 space. You can shift it 6 spaces, anywhere up to 26 because there's 26 options. This is another example of Caesar cipher, shifted 2 to the right. And if you wanted to spell TCS, right? So we would go to T, which now is an R. And then we would go to C, which now is an A. And then we would go to Q. Sorry, we would go TCSS, which is AQ. So here's a video from Khan Academy about the Caesar cipher. Let me get that open.
Was used by Julius Caesar around 58 BC. It is now referred to as the Caesar cipher. Caesar shifted each letter in his military commands in order to make them appear meaningless should the enemy intercept it. Imagine Alice and Bob decided to communicate using the Caesar cipher. First, they would need to agree in advance on a shift to use, say 3. So to encrypt her message, Alice would need to apply a shift of 3 to each letter in her original message. So A becomes D, B becomes E, C becomes F, and so on. This unreadable or encrypted message is then sent to Bob openly. Then Bob simply subtracts the shift of 3 from each letter in order to read the original message. Incredibly, this basic cipher was used by military leaders for hundreds of years after Caesar.
I have fought and won, but I haven't conquered over man's spirit, which is indomitable.
However, a lock is only as strong as its weakest point. A lock breaker may look for mechanical flaws, or failing that, extract information in order to narrow down the correct combination. The process of lock breaking and code breaking are very similar. The weakness of the Caesar cipher was published 800 years later by an Arab mathematician named Al-Kindi. He broke the Caesar cipher by using a clue based on an important property of the language a message is written in. If you scan text from any book and count the frequency of each letter, you will find a fairly consistent pattern. For example, these are the letter frequencies of English. This can be thought of as a fingerprint of English. We leave this fingerprint when we communicate without realizing it. This clue is one of the most valuable tools for a code breaker. To break this cipher, they count up the frequencies of each letter in the encrypted text and check how far the fingerprint has shifted. For example, if H is the most popular letter in the encrypted message instead of E, then the shift was likely 3. So they reversed the shift in order to reveal the original message. This is called frequency analysis, and it was a blow to the security of the Caesar cipher.
So that's a great video that explains a little bit more about where the Caesar shift cipher comes from and how it's used, and also that idea of code cracking with frequency analysis and knowing that some letters that we use appear more often, far more often than others. It's a great skill to know if you are going to go on Wheel of Fortune, or if you're going to play Hangman, or if you are trying to crack a code. It's also frequency analysis, and the frequency of letters appearing is something that is used in the Morse code. It's used in Morse code in terms of how letters are assigned certain dots and dashes. And we'll learn more about Morse code tomorrow as we talk about other different kinds of codes. This is a picture of something that you might want to use for deciphering or enciphering or encoding. It's a basically something that you can cut out. You'll notice there's 2 circles, one that's larger and one that's smaller. You could print that out and cut it out and attach them with a brad in the middle so that one disk spins over the other disk, and you could then write an alphabet on the inside disk, and that would give you your ability to do a Caesar shift really quickly. So if you were lined up the A's and then moved the smaller disk 3 spaces to the right, then you have what the new Caesar shift is. You could also use this to put in symbols or numbers or whatever it is that you want on the smaller disk. So it's a great little decoding tool. Some of you may have used a tool similar to this if you do any kind of transposing in music. Like, let's say a song was written in the key of C and you wanted to move it to a different key. It's basically like doing a shift, and you would transpose all of the notes to be in the new key. And it's a way to do that quickly and easily if you don't have it committed to memory. And this is also another tool that you can use for shifting or substitutions. They're just blank alphabets with whatever you want to write underneath it. If you want to write the new shift, if you want to write symbols or numbers underneath, it's a way to set up your code so that you have you know how to decode something should you need it. The next cipher I want to talk about is the keyword cipher. This is sort of a fun cipher. It kind of employs the use of a shift, but also a keyword that both the sender and the receiver would need to know. And in this case, the shift down here, the keyword is zebra. And I wish that wouldn't show up every time I move my cursor down there. But you'll see that underneath the letter A, there's a Z, and B, there's an E. Underneath C is B. Underneath D is an R, spelling out zebra. And then starting with letter F, which is the end of the word zebra, the alphabet picks up with the letters that have not been used. So we used a B and an A in zebra. So the next letter is C, and we would start with C, D. Now obviously we would skip E because we also used E in zebra, and then F, G, on down through the alphabet. And since we already used Z, we would not put Z at the end because we have it at the very beginning. So it's a way to both shift the letters and mix them up with also a secret code. So it adds a layer of complexity to your ciphering. I really like the keyword cipher because you can pick some fun keywords, and it really challenges. You don't have to have an actual code. The person can, once they know the code word, can fill the code out for themselves. So this is a great one. The Vigenère cipher, or it's a polyalphabetic cipher. This is one of the most complicated codes that we're going to use because it combines both the Caesar cipher and it is a Caesar cipher shift for each letter that you write, which is really complex. So it's difficult to explain this in words, but once you understand how the code works, you'll be able to break it. There's two different ways that you can do it that gets the same results. The first way that I'm going to show you is in the form of a video. And then the second way is an article. And like I said, stick with me, hang in there, because I think some of you actually will be able to get it. And it's a super fun way to code and decode. You have to practice. But again, once you know what the system is, it's very easy to break this code. Complicated though for those of us, for those people who don't know what it is. So I'm going to
encrypt the message, make it happen, using the Visionaire cipher and the keyword math. So in using the Visionaire cipher, our keyword is what shifts all of the letters. So if we go through this list, I'm going to mark out what each letter is shifted with. So the M will shift by 12, the A shifts 0, the T 19, and the H 7. So each letter in the message is going to get shifted in this order. So I'm going to list out the message. And above each, or actually under each letter, I'm going to write down how much we're going to shift it by. So the M is going to get shifted by the first letter, which is 12. A is going to get shifted by 0, so it's going to stay the same. The next one is 19, and then by 7. And then once you run out of letters, just start again. So then 12, 0, 19, 7, start again, 12, 0, 19, 7. So now I'm going to go through and shift these letters by the number underneath them. So the M, which is number 12, is going to get shifted by 12, so it's going to go to 24. So that's going to become a Y. The A is getting shifted by nothing, so that stays the same. The K, which is 10, is going to get shifted by 19, so that becomes 29. Well, we end at 25, so let's see what that means. So counting this out, 10 to 25 would be 15. So then 16, 17, 18, 19. So that's going to become a D. E is by 7, so E was 4, so add 7, you get 11. So that's going to be an L. The I gets shifted by 12. I is worth 8, so add 12, you get 20. So that's a U. T gets shifted by 0, so it stays the same. H by 19. So it was 7. If I add 19, I get 26. It ends at 25. So 7 to 25 is going to be 18. So one more A. A is shifted by 7. So A is 0, add 7 to H. P is shifted by 12. So P is 15. 12 is past where we are. So when we go to the 25, that's 10, 11, 12. P gets shifted by 0, so it stays the same. E is shifted by 19. So 4 and 19 is 23. And then N is shifted by 7. N is 13, add 7, you get 20, so that's a U.
Now that you've seen the video of one approach of using the Visionaire square approach to coding and decoding, I'd like to show you the Visionaire square approach. And this really is just a grid where all of the shifts have been worked out for you. So if you look at this first row, you'll notice that it's A, B, C, D all the way to the N to Z. And then the second row starts with the letter B. And when we run out of letters in the alphabet, we put that A at the end. And then the third row starts with C, D, E, F, G all the way through to letter Z. And then A and B are put at the end. So it continues that same pattern all the way down. Now, we have to follow some other steps that are also, I'm including this article as part of a resource if you want to go back and look at it and figure it out for yourself again. When we're going to be coding, let's say I want to send the message to Scott that I want him to meet me after school, but it's a secret because we're planning a secret party for the 5th graders, and I want to send him a secret message. So I want to say, meet me after school. Well, I'm not going to tell him the secret message, but what I will tell him is what the code word is. And in this case, the code word is going to be espionage. Espionage is really a fancy word for spying, but that's our code word. So down here, I'm going to write out meet me after school in the top box. And in the bottom box, I'm going to write our code word, which is espionage. So espionage. I get to the end, and then I start writing the word again, espionage. And I don't have any more letters, so I just stop right there. And now I'm going to use the combination of the intersection of the column and the row. So I'll look for in column M, row E up above, and see what letter that is. So let's go back up. Column M, I'm in column M, and I'm going to go down till I get to row E, and where they intersect is right here, which is letter Q. And I would simply write Q down here. And then I would find the intersection of the column E and row S and write whatever that letter is down there, and do the same for E and P and T and I and M and O all the way down. And so this is the secret code, the top row, the secret the secret word that we're going to use to decode, and then I would give Scott this bottom row. I would give him the bottom row code. So at the bottom row and the word espionage, he should be able to decode the message and know to meet me after school so that we can plan this big party. So again, here's an example of the bottom row all filled in, and that's the code that I would be giving to Scott. And then you can go, when Scott gets the message, he would have to reverse the process and go back and decode the message to find out what the actual code is. So it does take practice. It's pretty cool. This chart, if you like charts, that might be the way to go. If you like counting, you might try the video approach. But either way, it's doing the exact same thing. It's just 2 different ways to get there in terms of what feels most comfortable. Again, the Vigenère square is the most complicated of the codes that we're going to be learning. And you can tell it's pretty complicated. Someone would really have to be pretty clever to be able to know this code or uncover this code. Even if they knew how to uncover a Vigenère square, they would still need to know what the code word is. And if that was a secret, it'd be practically impossible. Vigenère is the last code or cipher that I wanted to show you today. Tomorrow we've got another set of ciphers that are kind of a little bit different, but these are some of the ones that have come throughout history that have to do with shifting letters or substituting symbols or numbers. And what we want you to do now is to practice. So maybe take one of these ciphers and try making a code for someone else to break. And that could be maybe making it for a parent, or if you have an older sibling that you feel like they can handle it, or if you want to make a code for Scott or me and send us a code, then we will try to practice breaking it, and we'll probably send something back to you. So we want you to take a moment to not only watch the videos that are in here, and you also will have this just as a slideshow, but we also want you to practice, because practicing is where you're going to start to get some of the strategy and some of the systems of coding. So enjoy your time, and we will see you soon. Bye-bye.